We tie identity to behavior in this country. I think probably the entire world does it. But when we're first born, we don't do this. When we're first born, we're born with this beautiful, perfect, wholesome identity. This wholesome self-concept that hasn't been damaged yet. And it is in its purest form. And as we grow and we have interactions with the world, we become wounded. The world begins to feed us stories, and beliefs begin to develop in our brain. And slowly, slowly, a shift begins to happen where our identity becomes based on behavior, whereas once, before that wound happened, our identity was based on a belief. A belief about ourselves and a belief about the world. And as those beliefs become conditioned out of us, they become replaced with new ones. And then we develop false identities. So what I want to say is that you are not your behavior. You are not the worst thing you have ever done. You are not the best thing you have ever done. You are not your behavior. You are not your addiction. You are not the amount of money that's in your bank account. You are not your body. You are not the weight that is on the scale every morning. You are not your relationship status. You are not your job. You are not your contribution to the world. You are not your parenting style. You are not what your parents say about you. You are not what your brother or your sister says about you. You are not what your partner says about you. You are not your failures. You are not your successes. You are not your accomplishments. You are not your behavior. You are not your sexual identity. You are not your sexual orientation, your gender identity. These are not the things that make you who you are. Whatever the world says, I should say, about your sexual orientation or identity, about your gender identity, about the way that you dress, the way that you act, the way that you behave. You are not your worst failure. You are not your greatest success. Where does your identity come from? It is not your behavior. It is not your performance. I am a paramedic. I am a social worker. I am a mother. What do you identify with? Spend some time and really think about that. Where does your identity come from right now? Where do you think it comes from? Is it from your roles? Is it from your performance, your behavior, the things you do in the world? Is that how you define yourself? And what would happen if that was all taken away? Then who would you be? Where would your worth come from? Where does your worth come from? I want to tell you that every human has intrinsic worth, that we are all 100% lovable, that we are all 100% worthy, and that we all have an identity that is untouchable.